Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Mike Armstrong podcast show. And this evening or afternoon, North American side, we're joined by Morry Zelcovich, who is a Brainwave Entrainment engineer, which we're going to delve into what that is in a minute, but based in Ontario and near Toronto in Canada. And it's great to have you on my podcast today, Morry. How are you doing? You okay?
I'm doing terrifically well, Mike. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Brilliant. No problem at all. Thanks for coming on my podcast and sharing with myself and the audience who you are and what you do. So let's delve into that because I'm excited to ask this question. You're the only person I've ever known to be a brainwave entrainment engineer. And I do a lot of networking. So tell us a little bit more about that and what it entails.
Okay, so I guess a little bit of backstory is necessary. I spent the first 40 years of my life wanting to be dead. I was in deep, dark depression. I tried to kill myself a bunch of times. But let's face it, if you want to kill yourself, it's pretty easy to do. So I guess in the end, I really didn't want to. That being said, when I realized I couldn't find a way to live, when I couldn't find a way to die, I had to find a way to live. And that led me to all kinds of different research to figure out what was going on with me. So what first happened was I identified that the region that was causing me my problems was here, my brain.
Okay.
So I started doing research on the brain. Psychology, neurobiology, neurochemistry, quantum physics, anything I could to try to figure out what might have been going on. I realized
the easy subjects then, yeah?
Yeah, all the easy stuff. Especially trying to teach that to yourself.
Yeah.
That's the thing, right? I don't have any formal training in any of these things. Well, psychology I do a little bit, but the rest of it, no. So what I ended up doing was researching, and I realized that it all came down to my chemistry, which actually was a result of my brainwave activity, which actually was a result, so I'm reverse engineering here, which actually was a result of my thoughts. So in everyone, it works that way. We think things, our brain creates frequencies, our neurons start pulsing so many times a second. That's what a brain state is. That's what alpha is, gamma is, theta, beta, delta, all these different brain states that people might have heard of are nothing more than your neurons and how many times they pulse in a second. Now, the unique thing about that is that when your brain pulses, when your neurons pulse at a certain rate or at different rates, they produce different neural chemistry. So they create different neurotransmitters, endorphins, and hormones. And it is the chemicals that they produce that actually allows you to feel what you feel. So if you're really excited learning about what I'm talking about now, that's because you've on some level decided to be. Your brain creates the brainwave activity that then creates the chemistry that allows you to feel that way. Conversely, if you're bored, if you're excited, if you're angry, if you're anxious, if you're stressed, anything at all, if you're in love, all of these things, you feel nothing if you have no brain chemistry being produced as a result. So this is kind of what I figured out. When I figured that out, it was, I'm not going to say simply, but it was a matter of coming up with a way to influence my brainwave activity. So that it would change my chemistry enough that my thoughts would change. Because it's kind of like a cycle, for whatever reason, I had this series of negative experiences, or at least what I defined as negative. When I defined it as negative, the thought created the brainwave activity, which created the chemistry, which then created more bad thoughts, more brainwave activity, more chemistry. And this is the cycle of depression over and over and over again. So when I created my first brainwave recordings, it subtly altered, at least this is what I believe happened, is it subtly altered my brainwave activity, which then altered subtly my chemistry, which then made me think differently. And that's basically was my experience. I just started thinking differently. As I used my recordings, people I knew and friends were actually commenting on the changes in me. They said, "What are you doing?" So I gave them a recording. I said, "Here, I'm doing this." And they got back to me and they said, "Wow, this is amazing. I can't believe how I feel." I thought this is just friends being supportive because they see another friend who's no longer in the kind of pain that he's been in the whole time they've known him. until some months later, I started getting phone calls from people I don't know. It turns out some of my friends were giving the recordings to friends of theirs that I didn't know. And these same people were calling me up and saying, hey, Morry, you don't know me, but I'm a friend of Joe. I'm a friend of Steve. I'm a friend of, Bruce. Can you tell me what this is all about? They gave me one of your recordings and weird things are happening for me. I'm happier. I'm sleeping better. All these things are going on. And that's when I realized that, I'm not the only person with a brain. And this stuff can work on anyone with a brain. So that's kind of how it started. And basically what it is it's a series of embedded tones and sounds and audio frequencies that when the brain is exposed to them through the auditory, system, your ears essentially, and your auditory nerve, that your brain just kind of follows the frequency. So if it's going ba 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 ba, then if your neurons are exposed to that long enough, you end up literally with your neurons following the ba 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 ba. And because they're doing that monkey see, monkey do, I can then control to some degree the neural chemistry that is being produced by your brain, which means I can help you to control your output, how you see and experience the world around you, simply by taking advantage of something called the frequency following response, which is the same thing that happens to you. Mike, what's your favorite music?
Well, my favorite music is probably, I quite like dance music, from the 90s.
Okay, good. So you like the dance music. Do you ever notice when you're listening to the music, your head starts doing this?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's a form of entrainment. That's kind of what happens. You start tapping your foot, you're beating your arm, you're bouncing your head, your body swaying to the music. That's a form of entrainment. You're not thinking of doing that. It's just happening.
Yeah.
So the beauty of this technology is it doesn't require any effort on the user's part. You quite literally put on an ordinary pair of over the ear stereo headphones. That's it.
Yeah.
I got these for $12 at Walmart. And that's a discount store in North America for those of you in other parts of the world that may not have it. And you lie down or you sit back with head support and you press play. That's it. You can fall asleep and still get the same effects.
So is it a bit like meditation then, or a bit like listening to dance music or something? Like it's transient,
It's been described by many as meditation on steroids.
Yeah.
Because it's similar, I guess you can say it's in the family of meditation, but it's significantly stronger. If you're good at meditating and you do it with this, I've had Zen monks and Buddhist monks tell me that they've been meditating. Like these are people who are professional meditators. They meditate like their whole lives, really, 12 hours a day for years and years and years. And they tell me that when they use their meditation techniques while listening to these recordings, that they go deeper than they've ever been, and within minutes.
Yeah.
So it's a nice augment. It doesn't replace meditation.
Really. Yeah. It's an additional tool to enhance it, like an accelerator.
Yes. Yeah. But it doesn't replace anything that works for you that's good. If you're good with hypnosis, if you're good with guided meditations, I strongly suggest you continue using them. This would be an amazing adjunct to help to increase the benefits from it. But I wouldn't stop doing something that you enjoy doing, that you're getting benefits from.
Yeah, well, I've actually got a happiness formula, which is like a daily routine to make you happier. And meditation's part of my happiness formula. But I'd be interested in sampling in this brainwave entrainment. What do you actually call the technology? Brainwave entrainment.
That's correct. And count on it. When we're done this call, I will definitely send you a link to one of my systems.
Yeah, I'd be interested
As a thank you for having me here.
No problem. Yeah. So I'm fascinated by the brain myself. I'm a optimist. I'm not a half full glass kind of guy. The glass is overflowing, and give me some more glasses to keep the flow going. It's not half empty or half full with me. It's always full. The glass is always full. It's overflowing, and if you can find some more containers around the glass, keep that liquid flowing, then I'm happy to take it. But but
Well,
go on.
even if the glass is half full with water, it's still full.
Yeah, it's
It's
full, yeah,
filled
because of
with
oxygen. Yeah.
oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide. It's always full. There's nothing is ever empty. Interestingly enough, you don't hear anything. No one ever has heard anything, ever. You don't hear me now, as a matter of fact. What happens, are you familiar with that old riddle? If a tree falls in the woods and no one is there to hear it, does it make a noise?
Yeah, that's a philosophical statement, yeah?
Right.
Philosophy.
So if a tree falls in the forest, I'm asking you now, Mike, if a tree falls in the forest, no one's there to hear it, does it make a noise? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay. If a tree falls in the forest and you are there to hear it, does it make a noise?
Yeah.
Actually, the answer is no in both cases. What it creates is vibration. And if there is someone with the proper mechanics handy, i.e. ears, those vibrations get picked up by the ears. Okay. And then they get transmitted and translated in different regions of the brain into what you call sound. So if someone were to hear your voice, let's say you had 10 people in the room and we all were listening to you talk, and then we all had the ability to create a recording of your voice exactly as we hear it, then you would have 10 recordings that sounded different. Nobody hears your voice exactly the same way. You don't hear your voice exactly the same.
No, is that because everyone's equipment, if you like, is picking up the waves in a different frequency, if you like?
Well, it's picked up differently by the actual physical structures, but it's also interpreted slightly differently based on the actual mechanics of the brain itself, because the brain is interpreting the vibration. I've had people ask me, well, I'm deaf, can I still use your products? And I tell them, I have people who are auditory, they have problems. They're challenged, exactly. And they can't hear the sounds, but it's not important to hear the sounds. As long as you have the connected tissue, the vibration still travels. And it's the vibration that causes the entrainment, not your perception of tones.
Okay, it's interesting. It's like when when you see pictures and faces and stuff in things and stuff where it's the brain calculating. It doesn't see that thing, but the brain is taking the images it sees and coming up with its own version of what it sees. Similar sort of thing.
That's very. Yeah, that's quite a good way to put it, actually. That's what happens. So the idea behind it is that it's all about vibration. Everything is about vibration. Your cells vibrate at different frequencies. All your cells vibrate. Everything vibrates in the world around us. The table you're sitting at vibrates. Your sunglasses are vibrating. Everything vibrates at a frequency, and your brain does too. And the thing is that it's natural for your brain too. And it's natural for your brain to have stable frequencies. And in our world, the way it is today, you don't really get stable frequencies because we have too much stress, too many distractions.
Yeah. And how long does it take for someone to go from chaos to calm? You listening to your frequencies?
Well, generally speaking, the process of entrainment in an untrained mind can take about 6 minutes. If they're lying down, eyes closed, comfortable volume, stereo headphones. But to actually get into the habit, like I talk about this now, and I get tingling in my fingertips and in my hands when I meditate with these recordings. Yeah. My hands, just talking about it, are tingling right now.
Yeah.
Like I feel like thousands of little fingers are doing this to them. And it's like habitual now. I'm in a constant state of meditation. I get drawn out of it sometimes, but I go right back in.
Yeah.
So
does that have any negative effects on you?
The only thing could be perceived as negative would be it can bring up undealt with or repressed emotions or issues. So if you have any of these, then it's good to listen at a very quiet volume to start with. So these things come up quietly and softly. The thing is, a lot of people think of the Freudian, television movie model of repressed thoughts, whereas you are suffering from repressed thoughts, but you don't remember what they are. if they get exposed, it's like a catharsis and then you're free for the rest of your life. That's actually not how it works. If there's any topics or subjects that when people bring them up, you get very agitated, you get nervous, you get sad, you get emotional, that's a sign that you haven't dealt with something or that it's repressed. So just because you remember something doesn't mean it has no effect on you anymore. You know that it has an effect on you when you still have an emotional reaction to it. For instance, I talk about my suicide attempts and there's no change in my voice. I have no emotional tie to it because I've dealt with them. I deal with the depression of over 40 years. I literally used to wake up every single morning, cross my fingers, get up on my bed, draw my curtains, and hope I would see mushroom clouds. Because if I saw a mushroom cloud, it meant that I wouldn't have to live through another day. And that's what my life was like for 40 years.
Yeah.
But you hear...
Do you know what caused that? Or was that a bad experience as a child, or what caused that?
Well, I don't know exactly, but I can tell you that the result was due to brain chemistry imbalances. Yeah. Because when I started using the recordings, that's what healed me.
But genetic or what do they call it?
Well, it could have been environmental. It could have been genetic.
Like nature or nurture.
Yeah, probably a combination of everything. I think I was unbalanced also. Like I probably had mental issues when I was younger.
Yeah.
So it could have been a whole group of things that,
so
conspired
like a perfect
together.
Storm, maybe a perfect storm of being more prone to that, maybe having some incidences that caused that, having a slightly different chemical balance, all sorts of things.
All of the above is probably likely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went to see doctors, but they, back when I was a kid, they didn't give pills for everything. No. So they basically just said, you're coping really well. There's not much we can do for you. Have a good day.
Fair enough. Yeah. So I'm always fascinated by the brain. I would say I'm an amateur psychologist. I've studied people. I'm a people person, people watcher, and I study people and behavior, and I got high empathy and all that sort of stuff. So I used to study people. Like say, I've been in sales all my life generally, so I've always studied people to work out what buttons they need pushing, or what makes them tick, or what do they like about this or that or whatever. And then I started managing people, and it's the same when you manage salespeople. You got to get into their heads and understand what makes them tick and why they're good sometimes and not good other times, and all that sort of stuff. So I'm an amateur psychologist, but my sister's a clinical psychologist. She works in prisons with with mentally disturbed people, who've done bad things and stuff. So, but she spends her life delving into that area of people's minds, whereas I try and study the successful people of the world and the opposite end of that, really, the positive people and the people who are able to get their minds to come up with some great things or to do amazing things,
Yeah, that's actually, what your sister's doing is honorable and what you're doing is honorable. I think the human condition is all about understanding. And I think all of us would be a lot less afraid, especially at this time in history, if we had a better understanding of the world around us and ourselves in that world. And most people don't do that. Most people just ignore the messages that they're getting and pretend they're not there and hope they go away.
Yeah. Definitely. But it fascinates me because I think the brain is like, like they say, like there's a lot of the oceans still unseen, in the depths, and like space exploration. Well, that's how I consider the brain. The brain is like a fascinating, still yet to be discovered exploratory field. Like, what I mean? I think we know a lot about the brain, but I still think there's so much more that's there to be learned. It's just, it's like a universe on its own, and we all got one, and they're all different as well, So it's just, just little things that can happen in your life can just change your outlook, and just think it's fascinating. I just think we just still don't know enough about it,
That's so true. We know a lot, but the more we learn, the more we know we don't know.
Yeah.
So that's what makes it interesting to study, though, because if you're really going to study the mind and the brain, then you really have to have an open mind. So my view is that I have my theories, I have my ideas, but they're open to change at all times. Because
Yeah.
I think, especially with the brain, like you said, there's just so much to know that it's going to be literally impossible for us to ever truly understand it totally. Which means if you want to do something with the brain, you need to be open-minded.
Yeah. Well, if you think about, like, if you think about AI and all the artificial intelligence and how much work goes into getting these things to do very basic things, and like all the things that we can do, and most people don't even touch the sides on what they can actually do. They don't get anywhere near what they're capable of doing.
So true.
So like, just that one sort of control panel, it's just so sophisticated that, it's just so amazing. I think people just a bit like the human body as well is really amazing as well, like, but people underestimate, if you like, the power of themselves and of their brain and of all sorts of things, like, what I mean? They underestimate what they're capable of, and they sit in their comfort zone, not really striving towards anything, when they don't realize how well they could do other things, and they just need to try and attempt, like, but they just don't bother.
You are 100% right on the money there. I couldn't say it any more accurately than you just did. We are unlimited, except by our opinions of ourselves.
Yeah, by the boundaries put up around us through society, parents, education, all sorts of things which limit the thinking, but the brain is, I personally believe that, human beings are more or less capable of doing anything that they can conceive, they can do, but you just gotta.
Well, look at the pyramids as an example.
Yeah.
Even today, with the technology that we have, and how old are the pyramids? I mean, they're old.
Yeah.
But today, even with our machinery, right, and all our technology, we probably couldn't build pyramids.
No.
I mean, we could build them with much smaller pieces.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, to build duplicates with the giant boulders and how they did it and everything else, we can't do that. And yet, millennia ago, they did.
It takes layers of involvement, and we've evolved beyond that now. If the amount of brain power that we have all invested in computers had not been invested in computers, but into brickwork and bones and stuff, the capacity to be able to do it, and that's what the populations back then did. The civilians had all of that, sort of a compound effect of brain power, all working in that direction, and like what we've been able to do with technology, their technology was bricks and that kind of stuff, like, So
that's a good point.
So that's how I look at that, like, because I got a friend who loves to delve into the conspiracy theories and all of that, and we've had some amazing conversations. He watched all those strange discovery programs about the aliens and all the rest of that, and we love to have debates about. He says, well, it's got to be aliens because, like, we couldn't do those technologies. I'm like, yeah, but the people were very different then. And if you put so much energy into one thing and 100 years and 100 years and development on, then you get so very sophisticated in that particular area. And we just haven't delved in that area, like,
You're 100% right. Look at technology. Look at all the, when I was, even in the span of when I was a kid till now, when I was in my 20s, I had memorized, 50 or 60 phone numbers.
Yeah.
I want to call my dad, I call this number. I want to call my cousin Jeff, I call this number. I want to call my friend Bob, I call this number. It's all there, right in my head.
Yeah.
Do you know that I know the last 4 numbers of my wife's phone number? That's it.
You only know the last 4. Yeah, most people.
That's it.
Most people do because they're just looking for it in the phone.
That's right. It's here now. So why do we need to think of it? So these are like microcosms of proof that anything was possible back then, because you know what? We didn't have the technology. We didn't have this. There had to be another way. What if we were just able to think about things? And then one day, some really smart guy or girl said, huh, hammer, saw. I can make a saw. I can make a hammer. So they made a hammer and they made a saw. And then people thought, this is cool. Just like you and I go, oh, let's get the new phone. Let's get the new watch. Let's get Let's get the new big screen TV. Let's get the new this because it's so cool. It's so cool. It's new, right?
How
And
do we
innovative.
make this?
Let's get the self-driving car.
They started off with stones as the hammer,
Yeah.
just like monkeys do and apes and stuff. And
That's
then it's
right.
like, how can I upgrade this stone to a better stone? How can I give it a handle? And it just goes through that evolutionary.
That's right. But we get into this.
You know?
We get into this new exciting technology all the time. And the more we get into technology, the less we use the most powerful technology there is.
Yeah.
And the less we use it, just like, look, if you were to sit in bed for 3 days and not move your legs and then get out, you'd probably collapse.
You struggle, yeah. Well, I remember lots of things in my brain. I remember passwords and passcodes and URLs and stuff. It's all part of my job and my work. And if I get anything wrong, it takes everything twice as long or 3 times as long because I do a lot of social media marketing and SEO and so like with links and stuff, and then you've got to know the whole thing. So I'm constantly exercising my brain and constantly messaging the two. I'm very creative, because creative's like a muscle. The more you exercise it, the bigger it gets. And so I try not to. I use all of the devices now, but I still try to go cold turkey, and use my brain for certain things because I think it's good. It's good for you to be mentally to have mental agility, flexibility. I watch a lot of quiz shows, and it's good to be able to grab that information that some people take 10 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour to pull out. It's good to be able to pull that information out in seconds and recall it. And because I'm a solutions provider, I love solving problems. And the more information you can pull out of your filing cabinet and put in the various order that it needs, the better the solutions you can come up with, Oh,
of course. And that's the problem, though. Most people aren't like you.
No,
so they'd rather just do things the easy way.
The quick way or the easy way. Yeah.
And the least amount of, the path of least resistance is where they want to go. And that's what we're sold on with everything that we do. It's easier this way. It's more convenient this way. It's simpler this way. But the less, for instance, children don't write with pens anymore for the most part. They use, like all the schools have iPads or some kind of tablet or something, computers. Yeah. And it's actual proved now that if you write things down with a pencil or paper or pen on paper, you create neural pathways in your brain.
You remember it, because you remember it when somebody says it to you and it goes in your ear, then into your brain. Well, when they say it to you and you write it down, it goes into your ear, into the brain. Then you write it down, and so you remember the action of writing it, and then you remember the visualization of seeing it on paper. So it's just like reinforcement.
Yeah.
Multiple reinforcement through different sensory receptions, if you like, which means it's rubber stamp. Instead of you seeing a 2D image, you're seeing a 3 or 4D image of the same bit of information. So it's much more easier to recall it,
Yeah, it's just more work. You need to, we're all pretty lazy, so we don't want to work. But if we work a little bit, our brains will be in much better shape.
Yeah, well, because of the power of the human brain, this is why I was confident as soon as COVID happened in the pandemic, and they were saying like a virus, a vaccine will be like, could be 2, 3, 4 years or whatever. I was thinking, there's no way, right, with the power of the human brain, this day and age, the technical advances in biology and chemistry and physics, right, and technology, and the fact that you have the biggest market that there's ever been of the entire planet needing the same thing. You have the financial incentive, and you've got the technical and knowledge know-how. To me, there was always going to be a vaccine coming around in record time, and in the UK, I think we're going with it tomorrow. The
UK are leaders in getting the emergency permission to go ahead and start using it, and the effectiveness of the vaccines. And these are, I think, primarily RNA vaccines as well. So they're genetic coding vaccines. which is really cool because this kind of vaccine is new. The old vaccines were basically they put either live or dead versions of the virus in your body. Your body recognizes these things, creates antibodies against them, and that's how you survive. With the RNA vaccine, it's interesting because it's different. What it does is it actually puts genetically coded material in, but none of the virus, live or dead.
No, they're blockers, aren't they? I think it's supposed to.
No,
block.
they're not blockers at all. All they
not?
do is they tell your genetic code that I'm here, but you're not here.
Okay.
That's what it does. Instead of putting live or dead virus in you, it's just basically coding your genes to say I'm here when it's not. So it fools your genes into thinking you have the infection. So you do create the antibodies, but you actually don't have the infection at all.
Okay.
You don't even have a live or a dead version of the vaccine or of the disease in you at all. And it's brilliant because there's the ability with this kind of a vaccine of actually vaccinating people against different diseases altogether. There's different forms of, or various forms of cancer that they're probably going to be able to inoculate you against. Did you ever dream that you'd be able to get a needle and be protected from certain forms of cancer? I mean, that's incredible.
No, but I've seen the history in the last 40, 50 years about how many cancers have been sort of eradicated or been dealt with and stuff. And if you just look at the way technology and medicine has evolved and the speed of it and whatever, to me, as I say, I'm optimist anyway. I'm a glass full and overflowing. But I just see, as somebody who understands entrepreneurialism, the incentive of wealth and of money and the way the world works, pushing in energy in one direction, it just seemed it was just obvious that a vaccine would be created because, you know, we can go to the moon and we can do space exploration and all this sort of stuff, and we're doing it as standalone countries or, you know, without the whole world being affected by it. So you get that sort of combined push. It was just, to me, it was just obvious that something would be sorted, but, you know, there's no way the world would allow it to carry on for too much longer, like, you know, that was my sort of thought process on it, you know?
Well, you're being proven right. So anyone who said, you know, Mike's wrong, look at the world. I mean, the truth is the virus was probably around in October in most places, just not identified till March or April of the following year. But think about it. Where are we now? We're in November.
Yeah.
So basically it's been a year since we discovered this. That's pretty impressive.
Than most people, a year quicker than even most people optimistically thought. But yeah, you know, like you say, most of these things, they're not done with the whole collective of the world. You know, that extra urgency that, you know, is Russia going to do it? Is China going to do it? You know, all that extra. I'm somebody who's been in sales all my life, so I'm somebody who comes alive when that pressure is there. And in fact, it's been one of my best years of my life and one of my most productive years of my life. And that's because I work well under pressure. So as soon as I seen COVID come in, and I seen, you know, all the different things that I knew, you know, I like helping people, and I could just see loads of people going to be needing help. You know what I mean? So it just switched me on, and so I've been so productive. I started my podcast in sort of like the end of March because I'm into positivity and, you know, motivation and all of that. And I knew there was going to be a load of people who were going to be suffering with their mental health. And I just thought, well, if I can do something to help, then I'm doing something. Like, you know, it's better to do something than nothing. And I wrote a book, and I've done over 800 episodes on my podcast, and I created a happiness formula and a success formula, and I've been on other podcasts, and, you know, I've been globally networking. I was doing like 10 events a week. It just spurred me into life because I just thought, like, this is when the going gets tough, the tough get going, and this is a time to get out there and help as many people as possible.
That's a great attitude. Absolutely phenomenal attitude. It's nice that people like you are out there doing podcasts and sharing your views, because there's a lot of people, I'm sure, who listen, and before they start listening, they're thinking to themselves, what kind of world is this? And then they hear someone like you talk, and they start going, well, this guy's either crazy or smart. Maybe he's a little bit of both. And that's the best combination, quite frankly,
Yeah.
because you know what? If you see the world as it really is, I don't know how you can stay totally sane. But crazy isn't a bad thing. Crazy is
No.
inspiration. Crazy is exciting. Crazy is the ability to see things differently. That's all it
Yeah.
is, right?
That's it. Yeah.
So you're
I
not
mentioned
going
that.
around like the Joker, laughing your head off and
No.
giggling and hitting people. Your mind is looking at things in a different way, figuring out things in a different way, and then you go ahead and share it with other
Yeah.
people, which is wonderful because it gives them the opportunity to see something differently. They hear you talk, they hear the cadence of your voice, they hear the energy, so they know you're walking the walk, right? You're not just saying things, you're obviously experiencing them, and you're just telling us how you're experiencing them. And that has got to give people hope, and I think that's wonderful. So keep it up is all I can say.
Thanks for that. Yeah, thanks for that. And rather than say crazy, I like the word zany, different, Yeah, zany or different. I love zany, different.
Zany is good.
Yeah, I love zany people. I say zany experiences and colorful lives, if you like. And something which I say quite a lot has become one of my mantras now, really. And that's, I decided to make outside of my comfort zone my comfort zone. And that's where life gets interesting, when you leave your comfort zone and are willing to try and experience all those other things that are not in your original comfort zone.
Well, let me interrupt you for one quick sec and say, I think that's a funny word, comfort zone, because I don't know anyone who's actually comfortable in their comfort zone.
Yeah, true. Yeah, but
I say get out of your zone you're uncomfortable with and get into a real comfort zone. Pay attention to your body and to your mind, because that will tell you if you're comfortable. If you're sad or upset or angry, anxious, depressed, stressed, these are all good things, because they're telling you you're doing or thinking the wrong thing, which means they're red lights on the dashboard of your life. And as long as you pay attention to them, you can end up stopping yourself from getting worse. But most people don't recognize that, and they end up just, woe is me, and they get worse and worse and worse. But if you actually paid attention, you'd realize that, putting a fire under my hand is going to burn my hand. And I'll know that because I'll start feeling the heat and it'll get really painful. And that's what these things are. That's what stress is. That's what anxiety is. That's what, anger is. They're nothing more than your body and mind telling you, I love you, stop doing it because it's not making you feel good. And feeling good, conversely, is a sign that you're doing everything right. So that's how you know when you're on the right track. As long as you feel upset or angry or anything negative, that's because you're not doing the right thing. It's a safety mechanism that you have. Everyone has to tell them they're not doing the right thing. When you feel any kind of stress, you go ahead and you start doing something that makes you feel zany and happy and good. And that's exactly what you should be doing. Most people need to realize that when they feel bad, it's nothing more than an indication that they're thinking and or doing something that isn't right for them. When they make that shift in their mind, then they'll be able to use that information to help them to feel better. But most people, when they define something as bad, they go like this. They back up and they close their eyes. And the minute you back up and close your eyes, you don't learn. And when you don't learn, you're missing the lesson. And that's why life seems to be bad, because you're not actually listening to the lesson life is trying to give you.
Yeah, that's it. It's like for me, there's no such thing as failure. It's only lessons. And then if you don't take the lesson, then you failed because you failed to learn the lesson. But there's no such thing as failure. They're just lessons, and it's what you take away from them. And I always say, the first time you do something, and it goes wrong, you learn from it. And then if you make the same mistake again, well, then, you fail to learn from it. But some lessons are hard taught. Sometimes you have to go through a number of, tough lessons before you get the message.
So true.
Yeah, definitely. And what you said then is interesting, actually. I've never thought about that, but you're right. It's not a comfort zone because most people aren't happy in their comfort zone. So I might change the name of it, actually, because I think it's more a limit zone. It's when they live within their limits. Or the prison of society. The society enforced mental prison, and most people sit themselves within.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny, you know, we learn lessons from authority figures, whatever they may be in our lives. And because we're young, we kind of give them credibility. And then as we're adults, we keep those lessons. But we really need to pay attention and realize that if something isn't serving you, it's not the truth for you.
Yeah.
And even if it was the truth for your mom and your dad, or your teacher, or your minister, or your rabbi, or your, you know, priest, or whatever, I mean, anyone really, your friends,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. If it's not right for you, that's how you know it's not right for you, because it's not serving you.
That's right. And we're all our unique mix of cells, and our brains are all their unique mix of cells. So just because 10 billion people could tell you that this is the way to do something, and it might be the way to do it for them, but it may not necessarily mean it's the way to do it for you. But you've got to sort of, you know, this is how when I take information in, I always try and make sure that I think about it through the prism of my own experiences and occasions. And you know, so some people just follow other people's instructions verbatim, you know, and it's like, well, just because that works for them, it doesn't mean it would necessarily work for you. You've got to make that assessment based on your own internal sort of knowledge and experience and stuff, like, you know.
100, I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, that's when they're listening to gurus or to mentors. You know, you've got to find a mentor that is like you, that is going to give you the advice that is right for you, rather than give you the advice that is right for them. But they are very different beings to you, and so therefore, you know, what they're saying may not necessarily work for you. Like, you know?
Sure. If you look, if you're inspired by something someone says, don't do what they say. Take it in, reinterpret it, reimagine it in your own frame of reference, and then act on it. Because it won't work for you. I can give you a blueprint for everything I did to get out of my depression, but it may not work for you.
No.
If something I say resonates with you, just make it yours. Reinterpret it, reimagine it. You know, there's only one guru for anybody, and that's the person they see in the mirror every morning.
Yeah. Yeah. And the person they see in the mirror, that, you know, the big picture, big thinking version of that person, you know, the person without all the limitations, the true person that they are inside, or they just need to reach out to become, really.
That's so true. And I think people just, you know, we all have all the information we need. We all have all the feelings we need, all the knowledge we need, all the inspiration we need. We just need to realize it. You know, if I'm looking for a pen everywhere, I'm looking behind here, behind my monitor, behind my microphone. I'm looking for, oh, it's right here.
Yeah.
You know, this is what we do all our lives. We look outside of ourselves for all the answers when the answers really are inside.
Yeah, definitely. And that's why I think it's important to be in tune with yourself and your own emotions, your own feelings. You know, it's like me. I haven't been to the doctors for 25 years, except a couple of years ago I went to have a jab. And that's because I know myself. I know my body. I know when I'm run down. I know if I need to have a break. I'm in tune with myself. I don't need to go to a doctor because I know myself. If I had something really that was bad that I thought, actually, you know, this isn't normal, this isn't right, whatever, I go to a doctor. But, you know, you don't necessarily have to, if you're in tune with yourself and you know your own sort of patterns and your own sort of, you know, feelings and whatever, then you know, I know instantly if I've done too much and I need to have a break, or, you know, I need to get out and have a walk, or, you know, whatever. You know, you just, if you're in tune with yourself, you can avoid having to, you know, go to external forces, because it is all within you, really.
Yeah, we have our inner wisdom, and if we listen to it, I think we'd all be a lot happier.
Yeah.
At least I've noticed in my life that's been the case, and many of my clients' lives as well. They've seemed to tell me the same or similar things. Again, everybody's different, so they're going to have their own story. But the biggest trick, I think, is just, we all have, you know, this ability to know if we're happy or if we're sad, if we're angry or if we're this, or in love or if we're not, you know. I mean, just listen.
Yeah.
Just listen to yourself and find your way.
Yeah, definitely. That leads us nicely on to how do people get in touch with you if they're interested in trying out your brainwave methods and getting in touch with you and following you and trying to find out more about you. How do they do that?
Well, they can simply do a search for Morry Zelcovich if they want. Good luck spelling the last name, of course. But or you can just do a search for the Morry Method on Google. That's probably the easiest way. So that would be the TheMorry method, the Morry Method. And you'll get a bunch of websites. I have a website, themorrymethod.com. My phone number's there if anyone needs to talk. I'm available if they want to message me on Twitter or Facebook or, any of the standards. But I encourage you, if you're at all interested in discovering more about yourself, Brainwave Entrainment is a very simplified way to do it. If you're like me and you had a very hard time meditating on your own, it kind of happens automatically when you listen to properly engineered entrainment. So I would encourage
brilliant.
You just find a source that you would trust.
Yeah, brilliant. You just froze for a bit, but then you come back. Just a little bit of a marketing tip for you as well. I don't know if you use it or not, but use the hashtag the Morry Method on every single bit of content that you put out from now on. And then just tell people in a chat, just check out hashtag the Morry Method and you'll find me. I do the same thing. I'm hashtag Mike Armstrong. Look for hashtag Mike Armstrong in Google or social media, and you're going to find my content somewhere. So if you're not using that hashtag, use it. And then over time, you'll have a filing cabinet of all your content under that hashtag.
I appreciate that. That's clever. Thank you.
No problem at all. Thanks very much for coming on my podcast and having a great chat with me about the human brain and your business and life in general. And I look forward to the next one.
Been my absolute pleasure, Mike. Thank you so much. And all of you out there, I wish you all the very best. And remember, you're born and supposed to be happy. That's why it feels good to be happy. So feel good.
Brilliant. Okay, then. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.